The LEGO Castle theme is returning once again, and this time it's in the form of a set called Dustmark Keep. According to the lore, the fortress serves as the center of operations for the mysterious Bounty Hunters Guild. Hidden deep within the desert wastelands, the keep thrives in isolation where secrecy and protection are almost guaranteed by the harsh environment surrounding it. At the heart of the fortress lies the guild's legendary bounty board. Public outlaw contracts sit beside highly confidential commissions secretly placed by rival factions, hoping to weaken their enemies without directly involving themselves. It creates this fascinating idea that the serpents operate in the shadows between every major kingdom and conflict within the LEGO Castle world. That is the story and inspiration of the set by the designer BrickLink. The set comes in at 3,960 pieces, alongside 20 minifigures, 3 horses, a snake, a mouse, and a brick-built vulture. That immediately places it among the largest and most densely populated LEGO Castle-style sets we've ever received. What stands out the most is how populated the fortress feels. 20 minifigures allows it to feel genuinely alive. Between bounty hunters, guards, prisoners, travelers, and mercenaries, the fortress carries the atmosphere of a functioning operation rather than a static display model. Visually, Dustmark Keep immediately separates itself from nearly every modern LEGO Castle release simply because of its environment. Modern LEGO Castles have heavily leaned into lush forests, rivers, greenery, and traditional European-inspired landscapes. Dustmark Keep instead embraces an arid desert setting filled with blowing sand, dry vegetation, and heat-scorched architecture. The sand accumulation built around the fortress walls is one of the strongest visual details in the entire model. It genuinely feels as though years of desert winds have partially buried the lower sections of the castle over time. Combined with the darker stonework and weathered textures moving up the castle, the fortress gains an atmosphere unlike anything else in the current LEGO Castle lineup. The use of palm trees, woody vines, and berry-covered vegetation creates excellent contrast against the brown sands and stone walls. Rather than feeling barren or repetitive, the environment feels harsh yet strangely alive where it can be, and catches your eye all around the set. At the front of the fortress, the massive entrance gate immediately establishes the keep as a heavily defended location. Large reinforced doors lead directly into the central courtyard, where guild members likely gather between contracts and missions, and of course, since there is no actual moat like, say, Lion Knight's Castle had, it is much needed to have a more reinforced entryway. And above the wall sits the Fortress Ballista, one of the set's primary play features, and honestly, the ballista feels incredibly fitting for this particular faction. Traditional kingdoms often rely on armies, cavalry, and siege warfare, but the serpents instead feel built around precision, ambushes, and calculated violence. The weaponry reflects that identity perfectly. It really reminds me of the Continental Hotel from the John Wick series, where all the assassins and bounty hunters go while waiting to receive contracts. Another excellent feature is the fortress warning bell, activated through a hidden lever mechanism. It is exactly the kind of classic LEGO Castle play feature that instantly creates storytelling opportunities. One can only imagine bounty hunters rushing into defensive positions as riders emerge from distant sandstorms approaching the front gates. The prison escape feature also adds a great amount of personality and playability to the set. A section of the jail wall can physically break away, allowing captured prisoners to attempt escape from the dungeon down below. It creates the sense that rival factions may launch rescue missions to retrieve important captives before the serpents deliver them for payment, or possibly worse. Even smaller additions such as the prisoner transport wagon and the vulture perched high above the walls help reinforce the idea that Dustmark Keep is a constantly active operation rather than merely a decorative castle. Inside, Dustmark Keep continues to distinguish itself from traditional LEGO castles by focusing almost entirely on guild operations instead of royal or everyday life. Rather than banquet halls, thrones, or noble chambers, the interior revolves around contracts, imprisonment, negotiations, weapons, and bounty hunting itself. The central courtyard functions as the operational core of the fortress, where guild members gather, prisoners are transferred, and deals are negotiated. The library and bounty board section may be one of the most interesting areas in the entire set. Walls filled with contracts, maps, records, and wanted posters create a tremendous amount of storytelling potential. It is easy to imagine bounty hunters crowding around the board searching for their next contract, while the clerk carefully records transactions nearby. And one thing I want to point out, there is currently bounties out on the Lion Knights as well as the Forestmen. What the Forestmen could have done to receive the highest bounty, who only knows. The prison areas overseen by the jailer feel appropriately brutal as well. Shackles, cages, weapon storage, and guarded holding areas reinforce the morally questionable nature of the guild itself. It almost feels like the wolf pack, but even more brutal and technologically superior. Importantly, the modular construction of the keep ensures that the interior remains highly accessible. The build can open into different display formats, allowing easy access to interior rooms and play areas without constantly fighting large walls or cramped spaces to place minifigures, as well as leaving accessibility all throughout the castle with hallways, stairs, and ladders when opened. This flexibility is something the strongest LEGO castles constantly achieve. They feel interactive and explorable rather than functioning solely as a shelf display. The minifigure lineup is one of Dustmark Keep's strongest features, with 20 figures included. The fortress genuinely feels populated by a wide array of characters. The named guild members reinforce this atmosphere perfectly. The leader acts as the guild's mysterious connection to the nobility, operating as the invisible bridge between kingdoms and mercenary services. The negotiator ensures every contract squeezes the maximum possible profit from the desperate clients. The jailer oversees captured prisoners deep within the fortress cells, while the clerk maintains records, contracts, maps, and bounty posters inside the keep's library. Overseeing all of it is the madam of the keep itself, maintaining discipline and order in a fortress filled with dangerous individuals. The serpents themselves possess a very unique visual identity compared to other LEGO Castle groups. Their darker clothing, layered armor, desert survival gear, and bounty hunter aesthetics help them stand apart from the more traditional knightly factions. Importantly, they do not simply come across as generic villains though. Instead, they feel professional, disciplined, and dangerous. More like elite mercenaries or assassins than the stereotypical evil knights like, say, the Wolfpack Outlaws, or Vladek's Cursed Knights from the Knights Kingdom 2 line. And getting 2 Horse Knights, 2 Griffins, and even a Kraken is incredibly welcome, seeing how that is each of the new factions we've recently received from LEGO. The inclusion of 3 horses also greatly strengthens the world building. Bounty hunters and mercenaries naturally require mobility across long distances and especially in the desert. And the mounted figures help reinforce the idea that contracts regularly take guild members incredibly far beyond the walls themselves and the nearby lands. Even the tiny mouse hidden somewhere within the fortress adds the kind of environmental detail LEGO fans always appreciate discovering. What makes Dustmark Keep especially interesting within the modern LEGO Castle lineup is how naturally it completes the growing collection of faction strongholds. The Lion Knights Castle established the Lion faction's definitive modern fortress, where the Black Falcon's mountain fortress did the same for them. The Forest Stronghold modernized the Forestmen beautifully, while the Outlaw Forest Den finally gave the Wolfpack a proper hideout reflecting their outlaw identity. The Horse Knight Castle similarly expanded the Horse Knights into a much more realized faction when they first released. And Dustmark Keep now gives the Serpents their own defining stronghold within the larger evolving realm. And visually, it may honestly stand apart the most due to the desert aesthetics alone. Each major faction now feels architecturally distinct. The Lions embody noble medieval tradition, where the Falcons lean heavily into militaristic fortification, the Forestmen integrate naturally into the woodland and stone environments, and the Wolfpack feel rebellious and hidden. The Serpents now occupy a completely unique role as morally gray bounty hunters operating between all sides of every conflict. And that role alone makes them one of the most fascinating factions in the modern LEGO Castle realm. At this point, the only major factions still lacking large modernized strongholds are the Griffins and Krakens. Seeing Dustmark Keep continue this trend honestly makes the larger castle universe feel more connected and complete than ever before. At approximately $350, Dustmark Keep firmly places itself within the premium collector territory. However, consisting nearly of 4,000 pieces, 20 minifigures, a large footprint, extensive interior detailing, and highly unique environment, the value feels surprisingly reasonable compared to other LEGO large sets. But for collectors looking for a substantial faction headquarters packed with storytelling potential, Dustmark Keep offers a tremendous amount of content. And as I always say, BrickLink Designer Program sets always increase on the aftermarket the day they officially ship and release, so it helps with the mindset of spending that much money psychologically. Dustmark Keep succeeds because it dares to feel genuinely different from any other LEGO castle set we've received in the past. The Serpents feel spiritually similar to the Wolfpack in many ways because they aren't structured like the traditional medieval factions. They're not defined by royalty or noble bloodlines or thriving civilian settlements. Instead, they feel like a dangerous collection of mercenaries, assassins, smugglers, and opportunists united beneath one symbol. The desert environment instantly gives it a fresh identity. The sand-covered walls, palm trees, dry vegetation, and weathered stone architecture create an atmosphere unlike anything else in the long history of castle themes. But more importantly, the Serpents themselves are simply an incredibly compelling faction concept. Dustmark Keep almost feels like the Mos Eisley Cantina from Star Wars, a dangerous gathering place far beyond civilization where hidden deals, dangerous individuals, and questionable alliances constantly unfold behind closed doors. With the Serpents now joining the Lions, Falcons, Forestmen, Wolfpack, and Horse Knights and receiving their own fully realized strongholds, the modern LEGO Castle world finally feels larger, richer, and more interconnected than ever before. Now all that remains is seeing what the Griffins and Krakens have in store next. Anyways, that's going to do it for today, and I'll see you in the next video.